So, why do countries trade with each other? It sounds like a pretty simple question, right? But the answer has literally transformed entire nations. And, well, it's at the very heart of a massive global debate that's happening right now. Okay, let's get into it and really unpack the theory of international trade. Take a look at this. This is modern Taiwan, a buzzing, high tech powerhouse. It's home to the companies that make the super important computer chips that are probably in the phone you're holding or the laptop you're using. But what if I told you that just 70 years ago, this place looked, completely different? The difference is, it's just staggering. Back in the 1950s, Taiwan was basically a farming economy and one of the poorest nations in the world. They tried to protect their own industries with these really high taxes on imports. We call them tariffs. And they pretty much only exported basic stuff like rice and sugar. Now you fast forward to today, and it's a world leader in semiconductors, with some of the lowest tariffs you can find. It went from a closed-off, kind of struggling economy to an absolute global trading superstar. So, how on earth did they do that? Well, it wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate journey that took decades. Starting in the late 50s, Taiwan's government made some really smart, really crucial choices. They devalued their currency, which made their stuff cheaper for other countries to buy. They set up these special export zones to bring in investment. And you know what? As the economy started picking up steam, they just kept lowering those trade barriers, bit by bit. By 2022, trade wasn't just part of their economy, it was the engine, the absolute engine driving everything. And this really brings us to the core question of this whole explainer. How did opening up to the world, to both buying and selling, spark such an incredible change? Was Taiwan just a one-off, a fluke? Or is there maybe a deeper economic idea at work here? Well, the answer lies in this really powerful economic concept. You can think of it like a secret ingredient that economists have been championing for centuries. It's called the gains from trade. So here's the big idea in a nutshell. The theory of gains from trade says that every country is good at something. Trade lets nations stop trying to be a jack of all trades and instead just specialize, focus on what they do best. When everyone does this, the whole system becomes way more efficient. The global economic pie actually gets bigger. And here's the most important part for you and me. It means lower prices and way more choices for all of us as consumers. You've probably heard the old saying, a rising tide lifts all boats. And that's exactly the idea here. See, trade isn't supposed to be a zero-sum game, where for one country to win, another one has to lose. The theory is that open trade creates brand new wealth and opportunities that end up benefiting everybody involved. Okay, so that's the big picture theory, but let's bring it down to earth and make it make sense with a couple of really simple examples of how this actually works. Let's start with the most obvious example you can think of. It's just common sense, right? Iceland, with its cold climate, is amazing at fishing, but it probably shouldn't waste its time trying to grow oranges. It makes so much more sense for Iceland to sell its fish to the world and then just use that money to buy oranges from, Spain. Easy enough, right? Okay, but here's where it gets a little more interesting, and it's a question a lot of people ask. Why on earth should a country buy something from someone else when it could, just make that same thing at home? Doesn't that just kill local jobs? And this is where that idea of specialization really flexes its muscles. Think about it. The United States could absolutely make more of its own clothes, but its resources, things like a highly skilled workforce and cutting-edge tech, are just used so much more efficiently building something like a commercial airplane. At the same time, a country like Bangladesh can produce textiles incredibly efficiently because it has tons of low-cost labor. So by each country specializing and then trading, they both get what they need more cheaply and efficiently. That means American consumers get affordable clothes and Bangladesh gets access to top-tier aircraft. Now, this whole idea of specialization in free trade, this isn't just some dusty old theory from a textbook. It is right at the center of a huge worldwide debate that is literally reshaping our world as we speak. For something like 70 years, most of the world's big economies ran on this principle. Led by countries like the US, they all steadily tore down trade barriers because they believed in that rising tide. But starting around 2017, that shared belief just kind of shattered. The tide is definitely turning. So now what we're seeing is a major clash between two totally different ways of thinking. On one side, you've got free trade, where the market's invisible hand basically decides what goes where. And on the other side, you have managed trade, where governments jump in with both feet, using tariffs and big agreements to control what's being bought and sold and how much of it. And trust me, this is not just some academic debate. It's really happening. The United States has made a clear pivot toward these managed trade policies. And in response, what happens? Well, other huge players, especially China, have thrown up their own barriers. And now even the European Union is starting to talk more and more about protecting its own key industries. It's become a global trend.
And if you ask most economists, the results of this big shift are already pretty clear. We're seeing global trade growth slow down. Those critical supply chains are all scrambled up, which makes it harder to get everything from car parts to medicine. It's raising costs for businesses, and guess what? Those costs usually get passed right on down to us. By putting up all these walls, there's a real risk of shrinking that global economic pie that trade works so hard to grow.
All of which leaves us with a really important question for the future. For decades, the guiding idea was that open trade was that rising tide that lifted all boats. But now, as the world's biggest economies start building new walls and barriers, you just have to ask, who and what is going to get left behind?